and say, well, that's a great design, but it'll only go, that's gonna slow it down, and you need to, so you need to make it area domain.
That's thinking, that's part of thinking again. The engineering trade-offs, no, things that doesn't require, you don't think of a portion in the sense, somebody had to go out and dig the ore,
Right.
someone had to smelt it, somebody had to
It's
hammer it
basically
out
made
by
in a
hand.
factory, most.
Make it back by robots.
Yeah, they create,
And that's what you were asking, you were
Yeah.
saying, it's not, that's what you were asking,
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
the physical making of the
Right.
thing.
Right.
Okay, so.
Something like
but
Michelangelo's
that is
David.
that is a good point, because there is a craft to building an automobile.
Mhm.
Yeah, but it's not as great as the thinking that goes into designing.
That's true, it's not as
Right.
important.
So somewhere, so you're
'Cause
not,
you can-
so you're not all the way over, you're maybe a little bit over them towards the
Yeah,
middle.
because a robot can build 95% of a car.
Yeah, yeah.
But if you think about, like Michelangelo's David, that required a
Yeah,
tremendous
well,
physical
physicality.
prowess
That's
to
right.
carve out a block of marble into
Yeah.
that thing. You know?
Lots of practice.
Yeah.
Well, that's why these things are on a continuum. That's
Yes.
why
And
they're-
the Pyramid of Giza is another example of
Most
tremendous
physical
physical
prowess.
prowess.
Well, the one,
Somebody had to think it all out.
Right.
really.
Right.
the one thing I've got written down is there's a strong separation of the ideas into one category or another. That's one of the requirements that we just said, we're looking for, what are the requirements of the ideas?
Yeah.
That there is a strong separation between the art and science in a particular idea.
If you're trying to create a dimension of polyaesthetic mapping, if you're trying to create a dimension, you need to do what you just said. You need to have a separation.
Right.
Because you
Okay.
won't experience the dimension if
Cool.
you don't see the end.
Right.
Full factor
And
analysis.
and then what else did we just say? The idea needs to have, needs to define the person or the entity that makes the thing has
That's
to be
right.
defined, right?
Well, I think it'd be clear to the audience if these things are out towards the edges in some respect.
That's only on this one axis,
Yeah,
Patricia, the one with requiring mental prowess and physical prowess. Because when you talk about the aesthetics of utilitarian function and not utilitarian function, you're talking about the object.
yeah.
Okay, so I'm Xing that off.
No,
I
no,
need to
no,
know,
it's just good.
I need to know how we're gonna make a judgment about which ideas we're going to choose. All right, that's how I set it up. I'm trying to keep you guys on track for how are you gonna make the judgment?
You know,
One thing we've got that is so far that we agree on is there's a strong separation of art and science. Another thing is it has to be an idea that can be presented in an
It's an
entertaining
expression.
way.
It's an expression.
And Joe?
Yeah, I have another thing I wanted to question is, do we need to have all original stuff as examples to illustrate this, or can we use pre-existing artworks?
Like what I did on the website.
Exactly, yeah.
I would say that
Maybe
I
for
mean, of
the
course.
examples, in the introduction, you'll want to use something that already exists that everybody knows about.
Right.
I
But then we
would-
also
I
have to
would
be
put
concerned
in
about
a-
copyright and licensing and all
yeah,
that stuff.
I would say, I would put in a plea that if you use already existing examples, they should be examples that are local to San Diego so we can involve that person in the project. So if you want to choose something of excellence, it should be by somebody that's here that we can involve in the project and say, we want to use your example.
There goes Beethoven tonight.
We'll have
Yeah.
an invisible haircut.
Well, there may be a psychic locally here in town that we can do a seance if we get Beethoven.
To actually come in.
Yeah. have him come.
And that's,
Parapsychologists in the science.
maybe it doesn't have to be local, maybe it could be anybody that's on a team as well, because some of the
Right.
teams won't be local
Right,
people.
right.
If you want to choose some of the stuff from teams,
We
that
have,
would be
we
all
have
right.
people on the board.
But I think we're better to start limiting our choices instead of expanding our choices.
Well, I just
Somehow.
thought that if we were able to use, for example, something public domain that people are very familiar with, that could be a really good way
It's
to
easier to communicate.
Right.
Makes things easier.
Yeah.
do something that
Clear.
people already really know well,
Mhm.
and we don't have any problems with copyrights and licenses and that kind of thing, then
Well,
Mahler, Beethoven.
yeah, well, yeah.
Are you gonna let the give examples to the writers of things that they could choose when you choose each of the topics.
Good.
I think every writer's gonna need to go through this whole system, and we're gonna have to map some things so they can experience it. Just like we were trying to do here, and we only really mapped a couple of things, and I think everybody's got a pretty good feel of this, even though we didn't really map that much.
I think that the more we map things, the more confused I get.
Oh, really?
Now that's
Sorry.
interesting.
I'm sorry, but I can't, I still have a hard time. It's a very complex system, Cass. You're very familiar with it. But it's a very complex system of keeping these things that are,
Separate.
and how each of them relates to each other and how they're different from each other. I still am having a hard time.
Well,
And then when you add this on, you know, and because this is the circles,
that's why I'm
then a
not
lot of my questions I know are because I'm separating it from this, and it really has to be integrated with
Actually,
this.
those really, when you answer those, it really helps you
To
map
know
it.
this.
Yeah,
You
it
could
helps you
superimpose
mapping.
those.
Yeah, they are, they,
You can project that on the wall.
well, and the trouble is
The
that
way
gets
you
really
map,
complex.
yeah, but the way you usually map something, as far as I remember when you did the demonstration, is you took whatever it was that you were mapping, and then you said, it's this, it's this, it's this, and it's that.
Right.
And then that told you where it ended up on the map. Is
Right.
that right? Isn't that how you did it?
It helped identify the location out on the three-dimensional
Yeah,
space.
yeah. So should we be starting here
Uh,
and not starting here?
You know, I'm afraid that we're adding more complexity if we do there,
Yeah.
but maybe not. Maybe it would be, well, it is adding more
It
complexity.
is?
Is there a red tide to it?
No.
It's a street,
Yeah.
light blue streak.
You saw a flash?
It was phosphorus or?
Yeah.
I've seen red tide, and it's amazing, blew my
Yeah,
mind.
I did
You
too.
usually can't see it from here because it's not dark enough. There are
Well,
lights.
maybe somebody may have had a light on the beam, and so it looked like it. Back in the 60s, it lasted about 9 months at some time.
What would help me a lot, you see, is if you had
I need to
six
identify these things.
what things?
Well, like this axis deals with the object, this axis deals with the person that created it,
Oh, okay.
you know.
This one is the person, right? The function and non-function?
No, the expression of physical prowess and mental prowess
Right,
is
that's the
about the person.
person. Okay,
The aesthetics of utilitarian function and not utilitarian function is the object.
is the object.
And the aesthetics of thinking and the aesthetics of direct experience is about the object as well.
Okay. Well, that's going to help a lot if you set that up to begin with as well. What was the other thing we said we were going to set up from the beginning? That there was a definition of art and science, and that we were trying to get clarity about the whole way that why we were doing this was to give clarity to that. Okay, that's helpful. That's helped a little bit.
You know?
Because then you said that and I wasn't sure what the other two were. So then another one of our criteria is that it has to, the examples have to be, two of them have to be people and four of them have to be objects?
No, I didn't say that, but
Are you doing 6 and trying to do the 6 at the furthest point?
I think we've determined what we're doing as far as, you know, how many skits or, you know, originally, you know, we talked about doing the 4 corners of the cube,
Yeah,
but, you know, that's been thrown out, so.
8.
I'm sorry, 8 corners.
You know, I'd like to throw a little tiny wrench into the idea of the aesthetics of thinking and direct experience. how do you take the person away from direct experience?
I was gonna say something about that too.
W-
That, I don't feel that that one is necessarily only
I
about
think
the
that is
object.
object and person.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
I think this is the person, this is the object, this is
That-
both.
Yes,
Mhm.
that's what I,
That's exactly
Oh,
what I was
interesting.
thinking, yeah.
What do you think?
Yes, it is.
because you
Mhm.
can't separate experience from the person.
It's the
Or the
person's,
thing.
And doing the
You
thinking
can't
too.
separate the
So,
thinking
you
from
know,
the person either.
I don't have a
It's the
problem with
person's
it being
reaction to the
both.
object.
Okay.
it's what?
The person's reaction to the
It
object.
involves both though, it involves the
But see,
person,
the object
creator, and-
invokes the aesthetics of thinking.
Well, what can
And
you
the
say
object
that
invokes-
is true
and
of
the object
utilitarian, but you can't say that of utilitarian function and not, it's
No,
only
no.
about the object.
Right, it's only about
It's
the
It's
object.
only
object.
about, and can you say that it's about the object with expression requiring physical ability? It's the person making something, making an object.
Yeah. it's
In
about
both
the
of
object.
those, isn't it?
It's about.
Yes, but it's definitely person
It's
centered.
more about the
It's
person,
not
right.
completely removed
Right.
from the object, but it's about the quality of the person.
That's right, it's
Right.
about the person.
Okay, because you could, with,
But I think,
if you,
yeah.
if the expression requires physical ability, craft, that could be the craft of playing an instrument, which is not an object. I mean, you're not making the instrument, you're making music, so
Right. But it
that's not.
requires craft, physical
Requires
prowess.
craft, but not, it's not making an object, it's making
Well, you
music.
could think
Music is
Sound.
a, music
You
is
can think of the
an
sound
It is
as
an
the
object?
object,
You
yeah.
can think of
Alright.
it as an
But
But
object.
then
the
it's
sound
also
is
person and object. Where is the,
Well, I think it looks at questions of intention here, as well as the object. And I don't see the confusion here, really, because of,
The intention, which axis are you talking about?
well, about aesthetics of direct experience or of thinking.
okay, so if we,
It's hard to, maybe we should separate the intention of the creator from the object, but I'm not sure you need to.
No, I don't know that you need to. The intention, you know. See, there, you have to look at the aesthetics of thinking. What is the difference between the aesthetics of thinking and an expression requiring mental prowess? Those are both thinking topics,
mhm,
but there's a difference between the two. One's about the object,
Yeah,
and the other one's about the person.
mhm.
So the
See, it
object,
doesn't help clarify things. If it doesn't help clarify things, do we need to go there? If it adds more confusion, then and it's not helping, because remember, that was one of our goals, was to try to help clarify things.
that's right.
If it doesn't clarify things, when you can say to me, you know, this is about an object, that helps to clarify what I'm thinking about. If it isn't clarifying it,
You-
then it's not useful
Yes,
here.
that needs to be
Yeah.
on this grid.
Mhm.
This is about an object, this is about the person, you know.
Okay.
That definitely needs to be,
or either.
yeah, or either whatever it is. That aspect needs to be written on my website as
Mhm.
well,
Okay,
Yeah, okay.
to clarify what's going on.
okay.
I
The,
think we're asking people to really extend and stretch their prowess of thinking.
mhm,
Yeah.
Yes,
mhm.
we're trying to make them think so that they can make things more clear in their mind.
But we also, as we talked about last time, we also need to entertain or they'll get bored real quick.
Yeah.
True.
That's all right,
True.
that's all right.
I
I'm
think
sure
that's the
that
easy
that's
part.
gonna, yeah, I think that that's gonna, that, as long as we make that requirement of the writers and they put in the humor and the
Okay.
visuals and the, you know, I don't think we need to worry about that. What we need to worry about is, what are the essential things that we can communicate that aren't gonna confuse people too much? What are the things that where you're gonna see this skit, and that's gonna lead you to something else that's essential, and something else is essential. If it doesn't have to be, like, you know, you've talked about it doesn't have to be the 8 corners of the grid particularly. Is it 8?
Cube.
Eight
Eight corners of the cube. But there's only 6 here.
No, these are actually the centers of the faces of the cube.
This is the center of
These
the
are
face.
the 3 axes, and they're the centers, and
So are we talking about the, finding things that are the center of the cube
Faces.
faces?
Faces,
Or
yes,
are we
yes.
talking about finding things
Yes.
at the corners
The
of
corners
the
is-
cubes?
is-
We're talking about both.
but the
Okay.
problem is that that corner is the extreme of all three different factors.
3 different
Yeah.
types
Whereas
together.
the center of the face is extreme of only one.
Yeah, and,
which
See, the
makes it-
corners
Cas-
have three ideas.
yeah,
Pick 3 of these and you've got a corner.
Yeah.
Pick these 3, you got a corner. Pick
Yeah.
these 3, you got a
Any
corner.
three makes a
Okay.
corner. So Kaz originally wanted us to find things that express the corners because that would
I was
give us a
trying to
real
make
good
you
handle.
think.
and is that, was it, and that was really hard.
Yes.
Yes, it was.
And that was really hard and confusing to explain.
I hadn't had the opportunity to try to explain that. And
We
I
didn't
thought it
really-
was
we
pretty
didn't really-
easy,
We
but
didn't really go
obviously it
anywhere with
wasn't.
that one.
Right.
We didn't
We
really go
did,
anywhere.
well, Arthur, you know,
Well, no,
We
no,
told
but
him-
then you did 2 other ones as well. It's not just Arthur going wacko on you.
well, it's not, you know, Arthur didn't follow the directions, you know, on those. I mean, we've discussed this
Yeah.
before.
Yeah, well, look,
Kaz gave us
It
that
makes it
sign.
really
He didn't
difficult to
follow
make
his
these
homework.
things
Yeah.
clear when people are not following
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
what's going on.
Do you think it would be easier and sufficient to go to the center of the cube instead of finding 3 that were at the corner?
Probably. I think it would
And
be
did you,
easy.
you
Well,
talked
well,
about that?
Well, when we talked about this, the center, it's, you know, you're talking about one dimension.
Yeah.
It makes it easier to talk about.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. Because 3, you know, multiplies the complexity by 3. When you say, okay, it's got to have this, and you think of something, then it's got to have this, and then you think of something,
All right.
oh, it doesn't have that, you know, so you got to start all over.
Right, right. 3 is hard. 1 is also, you know, there isn't anything that's so clear cut that it's just 1
Well, you know,
But-
that's,
either, right?
the point I was gonna make is that even if we agree substantially on how this goes, there still could be great differences in our opinions of where things fall.
Yeah.
Because the whole point of this exercise or project is that the audience will vote on where things fall and
Yes,
they'll see a whole thing that
But I
happens
think
in front of
that
them.
the problem will be is that we don't really get it communicated what it's about.
yes.
That's why they're gonna be everywhere.
What about a skit that showed the differences between with 3 skits, each one that showed the differences between 2 extremes? And
That's interesting.
And then after that, a skit that showed, that was more, I mean, that's complex enough as it is, but that maybe then tackled a corner with 3.
Now, I mean, you think this is part of the introduction?
No.
Is actually
No, I mean, in the actual thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, that'd have to, you know, writer would be willing to write it. But yeah, I mean,
3 skits that show the axes.
yeah.
That show the
Because what we
axes.
thought,
It's from the
as far as I know, what we thought of as an introduction is to present something and I guess ask the audience to vote on what they thought it was, and then we would show what we thought it was and try to get
The
them.
curve, the right,
And it's
Three
the-
part.
the difference.
yeah, yeah.
These are all, you know, sort of fluid ideas, and I think when you find the idea that is, if you can settle on what it is that is going to bring clarity to the project, that what you can actually communicate, then you'll know what's left over that might need to be in the front or the back, or whether that needs to be, I mean, it seems to me like, at this point, just explaining the differences between, and that's not something you can do in an introduction. That's not something you can do with words, and that's not something you can show them. They need some time to put that into their minds and see it physically and have it talked about, not just a quick introduction with a flash of a boob or a, you know, I think that it's going to need more than that. And maybe even that skit, which is talking about both, is not going to be a skit where you say, where does this skit belong on the axes? But you're going to say, where do these two extremes, where do these two things that we just showed you within the skit appear on the axes?
Yeah, you could do it that way, sure.
Well, that's how you start that's how you start deconstructing the skit.
Yeah.
You say, okay, we're gonna take this piece out, okay, with Elijah knows, we're looking at, the molecular structure of these chemicals and how light transforms them through whatever the process is. And it's obviously, okay, what does that deal with? Does that deal with thinking or direct experience? That aspect of this piece. Now, when you look at Elijah's slinging of chemicals on the canvas, and the shapes of those colors, is that something you experience through thinking or direct experience?
That's a good
And
question.
physical prowess, yeah.
Yeah,
And
how difficult was it for him to sling that paint?
Yeah.
Does it look like somebody that, and that's really tough too, because the general public looks at a piece of abstract art and goes, my child could do that, and I look at it and go, your child is brilliant if they can do that.
See, so maybe that's the reason why you need the skit.
Yeah.
That's the reason why you don't want to just show them a work and say, where does this fit and what do you think? That's the reason you have the skit, so that the skit is actually illustrating the diversity of questions about it and how it fits into art and science.
And you're deconstructing that skit.
Yeah.
Analyzing.
But I don't know whether that, I don't know, are you gonna ask the audience then? I know how we did it here. We picked the different rings and that helped us to track where it was within the whole globe of the cube, the whole inner space of the cube. But we're asking them to map something on this axis, this axis, and this axis for any one thing. We're asking them to map it on 3 axes for any one thing, or sometimes are we only asking them to map it on
Well,
one axis?
I thought that you were saying, let's create 3 small skits that show each axis.
Right, keep it
Is
simple.
this-
Just
And then the skit would have to concentrate
On that.
on those,
That one
talking
axis.
about that axis, those
Yeah.
things in that axis,
But-
and not get too confused by throwing in a whole bunch of other stuff.
And I could see these skits lasting 20 seconds
Yeah,
or
Yeah, a minute.
2 minutes.
Yeah,
a couple of minutes, yeah. Then
Yeah.
analyze them, and then towards the evening, it might get longer and more complicated.
More complex.
Right.
Yeah,
Start off
simple
simple,
ones at
quick,
the beginning, maybe 20 seconds is
Right.
fine.
easy
Yeah.
things
Bam,
to,
bam, and
right.
then, and then get more complicated.
And at the end, we're talking about corners or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think they should all be sort of skits in there. I don't think you should be heavy on the introduction, explanation, lots of words,
No,
because it's just too complicated.
just let it unfold.
show
Uh-huh,
by
yeah.
direct experience.
Yeah.
So the introduction is really going to be more experiential than lecture.
Well, the introduction might be that you brought them all together to talk about, art and science collaborations. Is that a good thing to have happen? And where do we get clarity to understand which is the art part and which is the science part of this? And therefore, are we helping them to start to define what is art and what is science? That's the kind of, you're framing what's going to happen that's what the introduction could be. Giving them a reason why they will get something out of this, I think.
Yeah, that's what Arthur keeps on. What's the motive?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And
That's-
don't forget, you'll have people like Arthur in the audience who watched
Uh-huh.
John do his astrobiology experiment and then pin it down as art. It's totally
That's
art.
art, man. Art.
Well, it does take some physical prowess.
I think it's so interesting that you're all so clear about the fact that artists and science should collaborate. And I think that you should not underestimate that there will be people that will wonder whether that's true.
Oh,
You know, I think there will be. I think in the,
well, part of it is that, you know, being microtonalists, which all four of us actually on some level are, it's really about the marriage of art and science. The science kind of comes first because you want to explore these new scales, which are basically new vocabularies that, you know, that need to be explored. But you need that vocabulary in order to then take your journey. You know, so we don't have any trouble understanding that connection because
it's integral.
We all do it all the time.
It's
yeah.
integral into what you're doing, yeah.
Yeah.
When you, one of the things that happened when we first started getting together was that there was a lot of questions asked about, well, who are the scientists? Because, you know, the San Diego Visual Arts is all visual arts,
Yeah.
right? So who are the scientists that are going to be involved in this project? And it turns out it's the scientists that are already artists
Yeah.
that are involved in
Well,
it.
there's certainly, I think it's self-selection in this thinking.
But I don't know if the audience is all going to be, I don't know if it's, the audience is all going to be that way.
Yeah.
Your audience is going to be made up of a lot of artists that aren't scientists.
And who may be very hostile to science.
Well, they're not artists.
There are, oh yes.
Yeah.
There's lots of people very
There's
hostile.
especially technology. There's a lot of artists that I don't want anything to do with the computer or, you know, Facebook, any of that crap, you know?
Yeah.
Just leave me alone in my
Yeah.
studio, let me
Yeah.
play with my potter's wheel.
Yeah.
Like Lou Harrison, his response to word processors is to learn how to make his own ink from natural products.
learn what?
How to make his own ink from natural products. And that takes chemistry, actually.
Uh-huh.
I mean, you have to get collect oak galls, and you have to get, you know, ferrosulfate and stuff. Actually, I mean, there's a lot of experimentation. I think very similar. It's the way science works. I remember Eric Marks told me, he said, "Don't call what I do experimental. You never hear the experiments."
Right.
Yeah, experimental art to me is not interesting because it's just, you know, it doesn't say anything. It's just trying to figure out what add elements to your palette.
Well,
Just give you more vocabulary so that you can actually say something different.
purposelessness.
And that was very purposeful. It just,
I think some of it is purposeless.
but you're just.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, no, you're right. Yeah, a lot of experimental work is purposeless.
That's another thing that you might want to say in an introduction, that you're going to try to start as simple as possible to explain some of these theories, and then as the evening goes on, it will get more and more complex, so that people can say, all right, well, so if I fall asleep, we're in the second half.
Or leave it, and there'll be no intermission. That's the old secret, you play the modern piece.
But, you know, that's a little bit of preparing expectations, that you do that with the introduction. And maybe you're going to have a program. Have you thought about, a program? I'm writing this stuff down because all of this stuff needs people to do it, you know.
We also need a
Program,
person.
you need an MC or
You know,
an introducer.
one of the things, I was just telling somebody the other day, one of the things that's interesting about Lamont Young's installations, are you guys familiar with them?
Yes.
I've been to 3 now.
Okay, well,
And there too.
Gosh, I've been to one too.
one thing that's interesting about that is that it's okay to fall asleep. I mean, people sit around on cushions and the thing is just there and it's just
At
happening
the Dia Art Foundation.
somewhat perpetually, you know, I mean, it actually gets turned on in the morning and turned off at night, but in theory, it's just there forever. And if you fall asleep, it's no big deal, it's fine. I've seen lots of people just fall asleep for a couple of hours while they're sitting there.
Did Beardsley take you to the dream house?
Oh, yeah, yeah, that's how I know about it.
Let's do a quick experiment around the room.
All right.
Are you gonna
Let's
ask
have,
something?
let's have everybody say the one subject about the collaboration between art and science that sounds the most interesting to hear about? And I would start off and I would say magic.
The one subject that art and science share,
That are different. How is magic different for scientists than it is for
yes,
artists?
that's the question I have as well.
Yeah. And I think that could be really fun and make it interesting. That was, somebody said that earlier, and that, I went, oh, wow, I can do PR on that.
Well, actually, Kaz, I think, is when it first mentioned it tonight.
Okay?
And I'm not
I
exactly
stole it.
and I'm
It's
not
okay.
Well, I
exactly-
mentioned it on the tapes, if you go back to the early
Mhm.
tapes, I mentioned it as well.
But I'm not sure what you mean by magic.
Well, it's open. You as a scientist, tell me about the magic that you experienced when you were reading something that gave you the epiphany that motivated you to be a scientist.
Mhm.
There's something that you read or something that you said, wow, that's magic, or
I
that
need
is
to understand
bizarre.
that. I'm intrigued. by
I'll give you an example of what I read when I started, what got me interested in science. Because when I finished my BFA, I read a book on physics, and when they explained what a quantum leap was, a discontinuous leap through space and time, that's where an electron travels from one orbit in an atom to another, but it doesn't go through any points in between. It's either here or here, and no place in between. And it travels from here to here, no place in between. That is magic. But, the more I studied it, I've come up with other ways of viewing it that's less magical. When I first heard it, I was going, that's surrealism. That's...
I just don't remember, because I've been thinking about science. As far back as I can remember being able to read. I mean, I probably was taken to, we had a big natural history museum in Nebraska. Mother used to send me to kind of a preschool, preschool, then a summer school, run by the education department across the street from it. And I used to come in and hang out in the labs. I mean, I used to talk to graduate students. They'd show me minerals
When you were
and fossils.
knee-high to a grasshopper.
Yeah. I mean, I don't remember any epiphany. I always was a scientist. We used to have some old books, and I learned how to read very quickly. I used to read old zoology books probably when I was in first grade.
So it's never been magic for you. There's never been anything
No,
that you thought.
It's always.
It's always been magic.
always been magic.
I mean, there's no difference. I mean, I'm totally baffled. by
So
that
what is
because
the
I-
magic? How do you define that magic?
It's what gets your inspiration going.
Yeah, it just fascinates me. I mean, I really prefer to read about it than almost anything else. I mean, I spend a lot of time on the internet every day just downloading papers. I don't always read them all because I don't have time, but there's things that just catch my attention. And I'm less compulsive about it than I used to be, obviously. My attention span is shorter.
So can we say that magic is?
But sometimes other things that, catch my interest. I know that's a weak way of sounding it, but I can't really, I think I know what the feeling you have, because I have that all the time.
When you
Although
did
not as
the,
strong as that.
when you did your experiments where you grew things that spelled out words or something, there's a lot of illusion in that. I think of magic also as illusion. There's a trick, and like with the chemical painting that you've been attracted to, there's this trick. That to me is kind of magic. Here it is. It's
Yeah.
one
It seems-
color,
it seems
and you spray it
irrational.
on, and it's
It
yeah.
seems irrational and improbable.
Yes.
But there's a direct logical
Yes,
explanation.
exactly. It's an illusion, so it's understanding that,
Yeah.
understanding the unknown.
Yeah, there's that too. Although,
Yeah.
like when I drew that colored fungus to make pictures, well,
Yeah.
we had to have some sort of decoration for the lab Christmas tree. I mean, not really Christmas, but so we had to come up with something. And people were using magic markers and various colors and stuff.
Right.
I got these colored fungi. I'll just paint a picture of them. So I did put an incubator. I grew up in a couple of days. We didn't photograph them, we waited too long to photograph them, so they don't look very good.
Could we say that the artists are more into experiencing the unknown and the scientists are more into trying to
I think
narrow it down?
I experience the unknown, and that makes me want to find out more about it.
But do artists want to find out more about it, or they just want you to experience it?
I think artists utilize illusion, and
Yeah.
they utilize it, I mean, that's really what perspective is, it's illusion.
Yeah.
They're utilizing the science to make something look three-dimensional, they're
Yeah.
using it to trick the eye, they're using the technology of illusion to go forth into
Okay.
new areas.
Why-
And when I think of magic for artists, I think of illusion. But when I think of the magic of the unknown, I mean, then it's like religion. You know, if you're really talking about the magic of art, the magic of a Rothko picture to transport you to a religious experience, then that's I include that in magic because I don't like the word religion very well. I prefer to use magic.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
I prefer to use inspiration. Something that inspires you. I guess that spiritual is from that too, but magic somehow, to me, involves trickery.
Uh-huh.
And so
That's one kind of magic,
yeah,
Penn and Teller business.
Yeah.
yeah.
But, you know, when I see one of these Trump Day pictures, I'm just fascinated by it. I mean, by the artistry, the technique, and the fact that they can make me see a three-dimensional, something that I know is planar, it's three-dimensional. I mean, just a trivial example, you see these things on the internet all the time, these chalk artists. But some of their stuff is really
Maybe
fascinating.
it's inspiration,
I think
I
that
started this off by
fascination
saying,
and
Fascination, I think,
Yeah.
one of the things I find.
All right. Well, I don't see much difference.
between,
Fascination and inspiration. To me, if you're fascinated by something, it triggers something in you that inspires you to think about something else, or that.
Well,
it
inspiration is
triggers
you're
something.
going to do something.
Right.
You can be fascinated by something and not do anything with it.
I don't know. I have a
Well,
whole
you
different.
can't do something with everything, that's right. I mean, I agree with you completely. I guess I did have one inspirational moment. And that is as a music class, which I hated, but I had to take it. And at the end of the semester, the teacher played Julian Carrillo's Preludio a Cologne in quarter eighth and 16 tones. And I absolutely was obsessed with this piece. I suddenly realized there's a whole new world of music out there. Utterly different from the crap we've been studying in this music class, blues and theory. And that's one case of the pivot.
That's sort of what got you started, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The second time was hearing Stockhausen lecture
Uh-huh.
in Germany, and the third time was getting in touch with Harry Forrest.
it's interesting because I started off and just said the word magic, but we've really come to you've really been talking about your personal eureka moments,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
so
I like
think
that.
the eureka moment is really one thing that some skit should be about.
Maslow would call it the aha.
Yes, the aha.
Yeah.
But, I was gonna say that, for me, fascination and inspiration are definitely not the same thing.
Mhm.
I mean, if I think of inspiration in terms of thinking of a new musical idea, getting inspired to compose a piece or even just a short idea, the inspiration doesn't generally have anything to do with fascination. It just comes out, I don't know where it comes from, it comes out of nowhere.
It's useless.
It's just in my head, all of a sudden, there's this tune in my head that I never heard before. Like, that's a good tune. Or whatever it is, it might not be a tune, it might be a chord or whatever.
Mhm.
But, fascination would be very different. Fascination is when I either want to compose it myself or hear something else by somebody else and want to probe it more deeply, like, wow, that's really interesting.
How do they do that?
Yeah, exactly. How do they do that?
Yeah.
Why does it sound like that?
Yeah.
But the inspiration is totally different from that. It's just something that comes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Well, there isn't a really good word for this, I don't think.
There is a I wonder if there's a difference between what artists and scientists feel about inspiration and fascination.
It's a good question.
I think we should ask them on 30, if eight oceanographers gonna come, let's ask them, or ask, Darwin's a physicist, isn't he?
Yeah.
Let's ask him.
Okay.
You
Can
know,
we call them in?
Well, why not?
But we were, you know, you guys, I try to keep you, you know, in a track and it goes off and then there's sometimes that I think, well, it doesn't even matter that we come back. But I did kind of want to make sure that you all had an opportunity to say what was interesting to you about some differences between art and science. As a, you know,
What's interesting about the differences?
yes. Something that fascinated you about the differences of art and science.
It's a clarity to me. I like things when they're clear, when they're not muddy, when things can be discussed. Because when things are clear, nothing is totally clear. But the more clarity I have, it's almost like building a pyramid. You just start building blocks, and when something becomes clear, it's another step that you can step on. And then you're back in the muck again. When you get something clear there, it's another step. And it just seems like as I make more things clear, it probes, asks more questions, and enables me to
But you're higher up the pyramid, so you have a bigger perspective of.
Well,
I would agree with that.
I see science as being the building blocks that make the pyramid, and the art as being the exploration of the pyramid.
But the scientists are exploring it as well.
Yeah.
I think, you know, what you just said is a really good point about science, that the more you discover, the more questions it raises.
Sure.
That's probably to me, the most fascinating thing
Okay.
about science.
The more, say it
The
again.
more, what did I say, the more discoveries there are, the more questions they raise.
The more clarity you
More
have.
questions, but you can ask more profound questions.
Right.
Questions that have greater application.
Now that's really interesting because, you know, I learned that as a silversmith.
Yeah.
As a silversmith, I raised silver goblets
Yeah.
as one of my projects, and you get to a point where you start to polish it at the end stages, and you cannot see the scratches, except the large scratches you're working on. They're the only ones you can see, and it is until you remove those large scratches that you physically can see the next set of scratches underneath them. So the more you finish it, the more you see what, you know, you get more and more clarity on it. And that it's more and more of a challenge until I guess it's a point of no return where you just simply can't see it and you can't see any difference anymore.
Well, that happens to some.
But that only happens when you work it,
Yeah.
when it's experiential. That's come up a lot of times tonight, hasn't it? Experiential.
You have to experience.
Uh-huh.
You can't just be told. And that's the problem with the system is I'm finding out it's just too complex to be told. Well, actually, I kind of knew that. I knew you have to experience it. That's why I created why I mapped so many things on the website, is so you could follow them and then try to map them yourself and experience it yourself.
So, have we decided to not use purposeless, but to use non-utilitarian?
Yeah, non-utilitarian function.
And he's gonna add objects and people on it.
Right.
We've actually come up with 4 kind of interesting concepts that could make very interesting discussions, I think. I don't know how, you know, if we decided to do the 2 opposites as the first set of little skits and then wanted to move on to some more complicated things that added clarity to what was going on, we came up with the eureka moment came up with seeking clarity. We came up with the more clarity, the more questions. And we came up with experiential. As concepts that artists and scientists could discuss and have differing viewpoints about, I guess.
Run by me one more time, please.
The eureka moment, the aha moment, the idea of seeking clarity, the idea of the more clarity, the more questions are posed, and the concept of experiential